We have a very special guest in studio today. She is the CEO of North Star Leadership, the great and powerful Annie Yatch.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for coming on.
Honored to be here.
Excited to have you.
Yeah, I mean, let's just kind of get right into it. I mean, you've worked with Navy SEALs, Fortune 500 execs. What's the wildest moment where you saw someone mentally programming to snap, but you rewired them in real time?
Oh, gosh. I think one of the best moments was probably, I had a gentleman who couldn't understand why he had built his business to be about $10 million. He couldn't understand why he was having such a problem creating a relationship with other people. And what we identified, we went all the way back to when he was 5 years old, and his mother had put him into his room, and he thought the door was locked, and he thought that everybody on the other side of that door had died. Because as you're a little kid, you're very illogical. You don't really understand what's going on. This poor guy in that moment decided, I'm never going to have a connection with another human being because they're all going to die anyway. And so he went with that subconscious story, running basically the 11 million data points of his subconscious until he was 45 years old. And he found me in an event and he asked me, he's like, what do you think is the big problem here? Because he's like, built all this business. I just can't find anybody who wants to spend their life with me. So let's go back and figure it out. And we did. Now he's in an amazing relationship, love of his life, has a daughter. And he was basically like, if you had not had that conversation with me, I would not have figured it out. And his businesses actually grew exponentially after that point as well, because now he could build a relationship with people that he never could before. Isn't that wild?
That's insane.
How do you get that far back? I mean, I try and think like, I don't know if I can remember that far back in my life to traumatic events or anything like that. I'm sure there probably was some, but how do you dive that deep with somebody?
So usually, even in the first session, I sit with the person. I'm like, okay, we're going to go into the lowest points of your life. I usually ask them to try to find 1 to 3 different points, and we're going to find the highest points of your life. And what's really cool about the conversation is that I will move them between the lowest points and the highest points, the lowest points and the highest points, so I can start to see the pattern that connects all of those points. And that pattern is something that you would never see normally because your subconscious will hide it from you. Your subconscious wants to keep you safe, so it sets a cap for all of your action, your behavior, your thought processes, that until you see that pattern, you never could change.
Wow. So how did you get into all this? Like, I mean, where did this all begin? You know, so you basically coach high performers. I mean, would that be the simplest way to put it?
Easiest way to put it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Coach high performers. I think what happened for me was I started in counterterrorism. Oh. And I went to school at Georgetown, and I was really excited about international law, security, counterterrorism, keeping the country safe, especially after 9/11. And what really became apparent to me as I went through that journey was I can't lie. I'm not a good liar. And all I want is for people to be at their best. And when you live in that world, everything's very negative and difficult. And so I started watching people's behavior, and I'm like, I wonder what we could do to make people's behavior easier. Like, what if life could be easier for everybody? That's actually a phrase that I use a lot in all of my coaching. I always ask people, like I had this situation with the gentleman just yesterday. He was in a really difficult space in his life because he needed his house to be appraised at a certain value so that he'd be able to, take out a mortgage on it or whatever it was he wanted to do. He's like, Annie, I've been waiting for this appraisal to come in, waiting. It hasn't come in. I'm like, well, have you ever done any emotional manifesting to get it to come in? And he's like, well, I don't even know what that means. Like, do you want me to visualize like getting the house? I'm like, no. I want you to feel what it feels like to already have that $1.2 million appraisal come in. I want you to imagine what it's like to walk into your house, tell your wife, she runs and jumps on you. You feel the excitement of it. We went into this whole long thing. At the end of it, he closed his eyes and he's like, all right, if this works, he's like, I'm in, hook, line, and sinker. 10 minutes later, he got the call that his home was appraised for $1.22 million.
Whoa.
And he literally was like, holy moly, this is amazing. He's like, how'd this happen? I'm like, well, emotion is what moves everything. And once I started to see that if you work on your emotional state a lot more and you work on emotional mastery, everything you want in your life starts to change. So I just became obsessed with, well, how do we get behavior to change? How do I become a behavior change expert? And how do I teach other people to do the same?
So cool.
Yeah, especially in today, I mean, amongst men, we're taught from a young age, like, you don't have emotions. You don't have, hide your emotions and all that. As of late, I mean, it's really, really since COVID, I think, is when you really saw a shift in the emotional side of things, especially for men.
True.
And I don't know. I mean, we've always posed the question to some people is, it's like, what do you think's more important, IQ or EQ? And, I've always been under the impression that, you can have a high IQ and a low EQ, but you can't have a high EQ without a high IQ.
Correct.
So I don't know. I've been focusing and really diving into the emotional side of things, especially, the divorce that I went through, and everything that since then. I mean, it's been and then baseball, because of like my background's in baseball. You can't control your emotions and have the mental toughness and fortitude. You're going to fail. That's what that game is. And
True.
now that I coach 17 and 18-year-olds, it's like, all right, guys, how are we going to work through this? And it's really difficult.
It's really hard. I mean, the mindset is everything, and mindset's so overused, but I always say it's not mindset, it's self-regulation. It's your ability to control yourself mentally, emotionally, and physically. But I think for men, what I've seen is that the hardest fight of your life is going from your head to your heart. And really being able to open your heart up and make decisions from that heart space for most men, because you're never been taught how to do it, and it doesn't feel safe to go there. Most men, if you have a really loving, nurturing spouse, you can usually open that up and go there. But for many of us that go through divorce and really intense things in our lives, it just shuts us down emotionally. So that's one of the first things I do with almost every man that I've ever coached is we'll do that, high-low exercise to identify like what's your superpower and what's your kryptonite and how do we get you out of this? And then we'll identify from there their success formula that's custom to every single person. Nobody has the same success formula. And then from there you go into, okay, how do we open your heart? Because if you can access your heart and attach it to what your brain normally does, everything is exponentially growing and you magnetize things much more quickly to you. So it's a pretty powerful thing. So you guys are in courageous work right now. You're doing really important work for yourselves.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, now would you say, do most high level achievers have like some sort of trauma that they're running from?
I have yet to meet a high level achiever that does not have a massive trauma that they're running from. And usually it happens between the age of 7 and 10. And it's almost always the complete opposite of what they think it is. So, like, for example, I had one guy, big guy in real estate, and we identified his trauma as that since he was a young kid and his dad got remarried and he was sort of that like tag along kid. His dad started a whole new relationship, had a whole new family, and he was sort of like the additional kid that was just there sometimes, but he never felt like he was really part of the family. So he ended up trying to prove to his dad all the time. And what that created was an oppressor versus oppressed conversation in his head. He has to have something to oppress him in order for him to create great wealth. And so he created a ton of wealth in this oppressor versus oppressed negative fuel that was fueling his subconscious. And then when we shifted that and we got him into a place where he doesn't care about that anymore, he's like, Annie, I feel so free. I feel like I'm doing so much better. He saved himself, I think, $750,000 in his company because he figured out a new strategy for something. He's like, I never knew that the negative fuel that I had used since I was 7 was going to be a detriment to me, because most entrepreneurs think, well, this is my edge. This is my competitive advantage. I have to have this negative fuel. I have to prove to everybody else X, Y, or Z. But it's really the moment that you can get out of that negative fuel place and try to shift that, I would say that subconscious story that's been running you since you were a kid, that everything opens up for you in business. The only adjacent piece to that is if you don't at the same time boost your neurochemistry, you'll go right back into the old story. Because most of us as entrepreneurs, our serotonin is low, our dopamine is low, because we've been burning through it for years trying to get our businesses up and running. So that puts us into a constant state of fight or flight. If we don't get ourselves out of that, it's very hard to change behavior patterns, thought patterns, mental patterns.
So how do you go about balancing that neurochemistry?
So I did a lot of research about 15 years ago because my ex-husband at the time had been a Navy SEAL for 10 years. He had pretty significant adrenal issues, always chasing the adrenaline, very frantic, fight or flight. And we just couldn't have a good relationship because we were living in that fight or flight response. And so I started doing some research and I found a company that it basically activates your microbiotic intelligence, which calms your brain. It's almost like what you're hearing about now a lot, which is calming the nervous system, right? There's a lot you can do to calm the nervous system, but it takes immense amount of practice, immense amount of work. A lot of us as entrepreneurs, we just don't have that time. So I was like, what's the fast track? What can we do changes the neurochemistry without having to do all that muscle work, mentally and emotionally? So this company, thankfully, they have a way to calm the nervous system. And I've watched entrepreneurs go through it for the last 7 years, and it's been incredible to watch the change. They make more money, they get deeper sleep, they have better relationships because finally they're not in fight or flight.
So is that the stuff you gave us before the show?
That's the stuff I gave you right before the show. Yeah. So you could try a little bit of it, right?
No, I feel it. Yeah.
Biome Tech.
Biome Tech.
Biome Tech.
Yep.
So how did you discover these people? Discover them?
Well, ironically, I went to a mastermind in Florida called Board of Advisors. And when I was there, I walked into the room and there was one woman who was standing on the right-hand side and then all the men on the left-hand side. And the woman on the right-hand side had the best energy I'd ever felt in my whole life. And I walked right up to her and I'm like, I don't know what it is you're selling. I don't know what it is you're doing, but I want that level of energy because I felt exhausted. I mean, you guys know as entrepreneurs, sometimes you are tapped, you're exhausted, you just don't have any more to give. And I went over to her and I asked him, like, what is it that you do? She's like, well, I'm going to tell you a lot of stuff. You're not going to believe half of it. You're going to think it tastes like water. You're going to get it in your body and your body's going to change forever. And I was like, willing to spend some money on that. Let's try it out.
Yeah.
And then my ex-husband, after that, he started noticing I was getting happier. I was doing more for myself. I was working out. My body was getting in better shape. And he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, remember those sprays that you thought were bullshit? I'm like, that's what I've been doing. And he started sneaking my sprays and using them on himself. And he's like, this is good stuff. He's like, what's the next level? You know, because as a Navy SEAL, you're always looking
What's
for the next level.
Yeah, of course.
Yep. And so to make a long story short, we ended up going out to their facility and really using the highest level of their supplements. And it's sort of like limitless. Your brain just feels like it expands when it's not in a state of fight or flight. And I'll never forget the first time I took him out there because he and I were on the brink of divorce. We really had gone through so much. And, you know, when you're married to someone who's been at that level of trauma for so long, you know, they barely slept. I think he slept maybe 45 minutes a night for 10 years straight.
Gee.
He had 9 out of 10 levels of pain, could barely get out of bed in the morning. You know, our kids wouldn't even sit on his lap because his energy was so bad. It was like I was living with a zombie. And I took him out there and we put 1 spoonful of this stuff in his mouth. All of his color came back. His pain went from 9 out of 10 to 2 out of 10. He literally turns to me and he's like, I've been an asshole to you for a long time. I'm really sorry. And I was like, whatever that is. I'm like, give him more of that, right? Yeah. So, and then people started saying to me, like, what did you do to him? He's so different. He's so much better. And I'm like, well, it wasn't me. It was, you know, maybe the combination of being around me, but also having this technology in his brain.
So what exactly?
Well, I am not the science person, but the best thing I can tell you is they help you turn on your body's microbiotic intelligence, which is the bacteria that runs your body. So I would call it like a brain probiotic. You're basically taking things that remind your brain how to heal and work itself into a better state. Because most of us only have maybe a 3 to 10% working microbiome because we have a lot of caffeine in our systems. We got alcohol in our systems. It's a very toxic environment. You know, there's stuff in the air all the time. So for me, I was like, whatever I can do to make sure I'm the healthiest I can be means that I will be even more effective at what I do in business. Yeah. And I just think as entrepreneurs, we put our health sometimes on the sidelines for impacting people, creating business, creating opportunity. And we had just reached a point where we had nothing left to give. And I'm like, well, now's the time. We got to change up what we've done.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I mean, we just took it, so I definitely feel like a little
lot more relaxed.
Yeah, it's
you guys have great energy right now. It's so good.
Thank you.
I'm loving it.
No, it's great. I like it.
Well, how is Biome Tech different than some of these other companies that are out there that are essentially offering the same thing, and like these ones that you like, the nootropics and the gums and the things like that?
Well, you know, it's interesting. I don't do a ton of research on this, but I saw some people who were promoting recently this, I think it was a gum or a mint that had allegedly probiotic material in it. So I sent it to the chemist. I'm like, what's in this? You know, what is the competition doing?
Is it
I don't,
sponsor
I can't
the show.
Remember. It's not Neurogum. It was a different,
don't worry,
it was a different one. But when I asked him, he's like, yeah, everyone's selling probiotics that are actually dead cow bacteria. He's like, and you don't want to put dead cow bacteria into your body. You want it to be something that is, you know, something that your body creates on its own. So what I love about what they do is they created a surrogate microbiome in the lab, and the surrogate microbiome spits out these specific proteins that then they put into the sprays or the capsules or whatever it is they're selling. And so you get something that tells your body to turn on its own healing mechanisms. So it's not something that's like dead cow bacteria or non-alive bacteria. This is your own body saying, hey, I need to create more of the healthy bacteria that turns my brain on in new ways. So that's how I think about it, because for me, hearing all the scientists, I mean, it's a lot of science, and it's like 24 different scientists that do this work. And I was like, I just need something that's easy for me to understand.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I'm not the
give me the
science person,
layman's
but
terms
yeah,
here.
layman's terms, something
Layman's
simple.
terms.
Keep it easy.
So what's the common internal belief that holds leaders back from scaling or anything when it comes to running a company or running a team or anything like that?
Well, there are a couple of really big lies that a lot of our subconscious will tell us. So when I did the research over the past 15 years of working with all these different entrepreneurs, there were 4 top lies that really like shook me when I realized what everybody was dealing with. The first one is really the fact that like I have to do it all on my own, which as men, you guys already feel like the weight of the world is on my shoulders all the time. Whether you have a business partner or you don't, it always weighs you down. And so you always feel responsible for everybody and everything around you. So that's the very first thing. When you live in that lie, it means you don't ask for help and you don't look at everybody around you as a team. So if you were to shift that mentality and be like, okay, it's safe for me to ask for help for everybody. And when it's also really safe for me to create team with every single person I interact with. It changes that dynamic. And now everything's about team because 100% of the success that you have in life is based on how you team with others. So that's the first lie. And that's the truth. 100% of how I, get success in life is teaming through and with others. The second one, usually it's about purpose because a lot of men I've seen in business get very fixated on comparison. So you'll compare how you're doing to everybody else when really it's your own journey, right? You guys, the thing to remember is you're exactly where you're meant to be. And your journey is completely separate than everybody else's. And it's so customized perfectly for you. So if you look at it and you're like, oh, I should be doing this or I should be here, or you're comparing yourself to others and you're basically missing the whole concept of purpose, which is everything for your purpose comes from you individually and internally.
I know you want to say it.
Comparison is the thief of joy.
Yep, I know. I say that all the time. I'm just like, don't steal your own joy. Don't do it.
It's like my lip quivering because I wanted to say it.
I know it's coming out.
It's coming.
Go ahead, buddy. Say it.
It's one of my
It's
favorite
true.
lines.
It's true.
I'm guilty of it, and I
do it to
we all
ourselves.
are, I think.
Yeah.
But it's something it's hard not to, especially nowadays with social media and everything. I mean, you get on there, you think you're doing great and on top of the world, and then you get on there and you're like, well, I'm not as good as what they're doing and what she's got going on and what he's doing, and man, he looks better with his shirt off than I do, whatever it is,
Well, you got to be so careful with that too, because your subconscious every night in the 10 minutes before you go to sleep, it starts siphoning off what's relevant, what's not. So if you spend time on social media thinking those thoughts, your subconscious is now going to take out of your brain the things that are related to some of those thoughts. So what I always tell the gentlemen that I work with, because I have a lot of male entrepreneur clients, especially in the real estate space, I'm like, we have to control your input. We cannot have you looking at social media 10 minutes before you go to bed or 10 minutes when you first wake up in the morning, because that'll set the tone for your entire day. The subconscious is so primable first thing in the morning, like right before you get out of bed, first 10 minutes and last 10 minutes before you go to sleep at night. So whatever you're telling yourself, make sure it's the most profound, powerful thing 10 minutes before you go to sleep and in the first 5 to 10 minutes in the morning.
That's awesome.
I like that. That's a good rule.
And I like to make customized, like not mantras, but like customized things for men to say to themselves in the morning that are specific to their life situation, because then we prime the subconscious so perfectly for their life experience and where they get to go.
Yeah.
So it takes you to the next level.
I like that.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Thanks.
Wow. So you built a 10,000 square foot tactical training studio?
So
Tell us about that.
Yeah, my ex-husband and I, we partnered with a company, a range studio place out of Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Okay.
And it's sort of a cool story because I don't know, I geek out a little bit about guns and
Sure.
defense because I always felt like as a woman, what are things that I should know that I don't know? Like you always hear pepper spray and I was like, oh, maybe I should carry pepper spray. Then you start to realize that is the worst thing you can do as a woman, to carry pepper spray, because you've never practiced with it. It's probably going to blow back and hit you. You don't know what that means. And you're going to be in fight or flight in the moment. And you might not be able to press down on the button, right?
Or you shoot it the wrong
Or
direction.
you shoot in the wrong direction. I mean, there's so many bad things that could happen. So I started learning about defensive flashlights and tactical flashlights and how they can like stun somebody from 40 feet away because of the high luminosity of the flashlight.
Okay.
So at the time, my Navy SEAL husband and I, we were trying to take this concept of building confidence into people that normally wouldn't be confident around guns and shooting. And we designed this 10,000 square foot facility. We had date nights where people would come in and they would have like personas they would play. We had spy dates where they come in, they'd play these like different personas and like defuse a bomb that we created and shoot in the range. And it was just so much fun. And we actually got on various media outlets because we did I think it was called Operation Geronimo that we ran, which was teaching people how to come together as a platoon and go after Osama bin Laden at the time. And so we had like tactical ways to do that and teach them that. It was just so much fun to make anything about guns and safety something that was relevant, fun, interesting, but also helping people overcome their fear around anything that was gun related.
Right. I mean, that's my wife in general. She can't stand guns. And I like to, go to the range every now and then. I'm not a huge gun like nut or anything, but I definitely like appreciate them, and I have a lot of respect for people that can do that, and it's something I would love to get more into. I
wish you guys could have been part of that back then when we had it, because she would have started to build her confidence about it. And really, it's a lack of education, lack of knowledge, and fear that drives so much of that.
Oh, totally.
I mean, like I got my conceal and carry. I mean, going through the class, I mean, you learn a lot, but I mean, it's not really eye opening until you, like, once you get into it and you start doing your own research and you start learning about certain things and things like, I mean, I completely opened my eyes to it, and, you know, trying to get, at the time, my wife on board, and she wasn't having it. And, but she, I mean, since then, like, her new boyfriend, I mean, she now carries a gun on her, and he was more successful in explaining things to her than I was, which is great, you know. But I think, you know,
well, especially in the real estate industry, like, I mean, because it's something that Gina talks about all the time, and, you know, I don't really think about, just because, you know, it's in real estate, we do a lot of things that they tell you not to do as a kid, like, let's go meet a stranger in a random house.
Correct.
You know, like, as a man who,
you never know what you're walking
you never know
into.
what I'm going against or going up against. And especially, like, as a man, I usually feel like I'm with my level of where I'm at physically, the training I have, I usually feel pretty safe in most situations. But, you know, as if there was if I was a woman, I definitely wouldn't have felt very safe in many situations I've been in my life. And so, like, her carrying a gun on her, I don't think is a bad thing at all. I mean,
no, I mean, we talk about it all the time, like with jujitsu. Like, I mean, you know, I'm nowhere close to where you're at in your journey through it, and very beginning stages. But I feel a lot more comfortable with what I've learned in the 6 months I've been doing it in total. That I know that I could probably protect myself pretty well in most situations. But then also, like, taking it a step further with all the shootings that are going on. Like,
I'm not going to do anything against a gun. I can't armbar a gun on your hand.
But at the same time, it's like, I personally feel like teachers should have their conceal and carry and have the option to be able to carry to school. Do you think someone's going to go walk into a school that says, hey, teachers are approved to conceal and carry, and there's a good opportunity I seriously doubt someone's going to walk into a school with the potential of having every teacher carrying. And, you know, I don't know. That's where I'm at. I think, you know, when taught properly, I think, in the safety of it, I think it makes things way more safer than how they are right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I guess the caveat thing you'd have to worry about is just, like, the safety of the guns with the kids there, you know?
Well, the other thing that we saw a lot is, like, they really don't have a ton of planning that's realistic in that scenario. We used to run a lot of sessions for families that would come in and be like, okay, what happens if this thing were to happen at a school? And the coolest thing I think I've ever done, we did a summer camp for kids on safety. And we taught the kids how, if somebody were to come into their schoolroom, that the kids would break it up into two sides, and half the class would go on the right side of the door, half the class would go on the left side of the door. And the second that person would come through the door, everybody would pile on top of the person so that they'd take them out. Because if you have 300, 400 pounds on you, you can't really do much because you're going right to the ground. And the kids felt so empowered just knowing that there was an option for what they could do if that ever happened. The parents were in the other room crying, watching the kids do this on video, because we wanted to show them it just takes a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of information, and the kids will feel empowered, and that gives you a chance. So I think that, you know, what I would love to see more of is some level of education, but it's really hard because, you know, schools just, they don't have the funds for it.
I was going to say, it's a budget issue.
It's a budget issue.
I mean, you know, I know my wife's a teacher, and, you know, they have the intruder drills, where they all, like, you know, line up against the wall, like, on the same wall as the door, so that, like, they can't see in. And I mean, I think that's, like, extent, and then locking the door, you know. I mean, I think that's about as extensive. I mean, I'm sorry, Gina, if you're listening, but if I'm forgetting something, but I think that's about as extensive as the drill gets. But
well, they had so many things that they could do. I mean, I know at one point they were talking about whiteboards that were armor plated in some way. So they were heavier, but they could easily be taken off the wall and put in front of the door, like, or put in front, like, a barrier for the kids. Yeah. And, you know, there are a lot of things like that we should be doing.
Oh, I mean, that makes sense. I never thought about that. Or, you know, I mean, you hate to see this, but, like, armed security at a school or something like that. I know that's something people have talked about, but I mean, I guess that would be a deterrent for sure. You know,
well, I think the more we can deter, right? That's the whole point. If you know that the school is a higher risk school than another school, which school you're going to go attack?
Yeah, you're going to go. Yeah. And I think I saw a video recently, and this is kind of similar topic, but it was, they were talking about, it was a guy that had, you know, assaulted a bunch of children. And, you know, he said that the first thing he would look at is, you know, the father. And as if the father was deemed a protector or a threat, and then he wouldn't have gone after that, that child. And like kind of the same thing in the school or and in your family's sake. Like you should be able to protect your family, have some level of capability, whether that's, firearm training or martial arts training or something, or, just be physically capable of protecting your family. I think that's extremely important.
I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for doing that and for sharing more about that with the gentlemen who are listening. It's so key.
Absolutely.
Of course.
Yeah, we talk about a lot of that stuff, especially the self-defense and the working out and training. I mean, I did some of it, but like, you are the 5 people you surround yourself with, and I've been around Zach pretty much every day for
you have no choice.
2 years now. So it's like now I do CrossFit and jiu-jitsu, and it's like, what else are we gonna start?
Start rubbing off on him.
Start just smashing meat here before too long.
Well, you guys need to do things like together. Right? Men need that. You need people that are going to do the same thing.
100%. Absolutely. We talk about that all the time. Just the sense of community. I mean, that's one of my favorite parts about jiu-jitsu is just like the community of people that I'm, gotten to meet through that. I mean, it's so diverse, and like, I mean, we're all there under one, like we all have this one goal, and it's like, you got people from every different background, every different color, ethnicity, different levels of education, everything, and, we're all on the mat together. And it's like, that's the one thing that really matters here is like, okay, I don't care if you're a guy that, you make couple $1 million a year, or if you're a guy that makes $20 an hour, like you're equal. We're equal here, depending on what you're capable of on the mat, and like, that's one of my favorite parts about it. And just like the people that I've met through there, it's just some amazing people, some of my best friends in the world.
I love that.
Love it.
Well, I wish more men would have the chance to, do things for themselves outside in nature. Also like jiu-jitsu. The thing that makes me feel the worst is when I get on a call with a man and he's like, well, I've been doing everything that my wife wants me to do for a really long time. And I'm like, what do you do for you though? And there's just silence. Like, do you have community? Do you have the ability to be in nature? Do you have the ability to do X, Y, or Z? And a lot of it goes back to they tie their worth 100% to what they create in business, not in the fact that like, listen, you're worthy just as you are, whether you are building a business or you aren't. Like, your presence as a man has such an ability to shift a room, right? I think men sometimes underestimate how much of power and confidence and protection they can exude just by walking into a room in a certain way. So it's just nice to see you guys are that type of person.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and then there's the piece of that too, where, you kind of have to be a little bit selfish.
You do.
Because like sometimes if I'm going to spend an hour, I'm like, I have to go to the gym today. I'm sorry. It's just like, it's something I have to do. And there are times where I definitely feel very selfish leaving the house when I know that like this is time that I could be spending with my family, but it's like, this is my me time. This is important to me that I get this done and that I go do this. And, it's something I am conflicted with pretty often, that like, I feel guilty, leaving my wife and kids at home while I go and, spend an hour and a half at the gym or something, like
but this is something I wish that as a country we would look at differently, right? We all call it selfish, right? But the whole point is it's not selfish at all, because if I can't be at my best, I can't give from anything that's positive. Right. So this is what I work on with a lot with men, because every man feels so guilty when he takes time for himself to do anything. It's the same thing with women. Like, as a mother, you feel guilty whenever you take time, when you're like, oh, I should be at home with my children. I should be doing this thing. But if you can shift it away from feeling guilty and look at it and be like, you know what? In order for me to be at my best, I have to do these specific things. Like for me, every morning, I'm like, I know for me to be at my best, I have to get a workout in. I have to eat a really amazing breakfast. I have to get snuggled by my kids and snuggle them back. And I have to reach out to at least 5 people that I love and tell them what the impact they've made on my life. And if I don't do that every morning, my morning is not as good. And I think we've been taught to self-sacrifice so often in our lives. And we really have to look at it and be like, nope, it's not about self-sacrifice. It's about being with yourself and knowing exactly what you need to be at your best. And then sharing that with your partner to say, hey, I want us both to be at our best. What do you need for us to do this? What kind of environment do we want to create in our home where the kids learn it is really important to put yourself first, to figure out what your needs are, how to communicate those needs, and then how to make sure that as a team, as a family unit, you make sure everybody's needs are met this week. So for a lot of couples that I've coached over the years, especially couples in business, I'm like, okay, every week you need a Sunday night meeting where you sit down and you say, hey, what are we going to do this week to make sure you get your one thing for you? What do we do to make sure I get my one thing for me? What do we do for the family unit to make sure the family unit is bonded and connected? And then what do we do for ourselves as a couple to make sure as a couple we're staying in that beautiful heart-connected space where we feel like we're both filling each other's cup?
Wow, I really like that.
Yeah.
I want to start doing that.
It's huge. Sunday afternoons is the best time.
Yeah.
There you go.
And you do this too. You don't only do this on Sunday afternoons. Say you're going on a trip with your family.
Yeah, well, we're leaving on Saturday for a family vacation.
But think about this, okay?
It's like she's like reading my mind. Okay.
But seriously though, like think about how many couples are out there and they're about to go on vacation. It's like this mad dash to get everybody out of the house, everything packed. It's like the wife's stressed, the husband's stressed. It's insane, right? Then you go on vacation. You're not even sure you're on vacation doing what you both want to do. You're giving up things to do things with the kids. Before you know it, you're home and you're like, I don't even know if I relaxed. So I'm going to give you guys something that's going to blow your mind about planning for a vacation. You sit down with each other and you say, okay, if we're going to plan this, what is the emotional feeling we both want to have during this entire experience with each other? And the wife will usually be like, well, I want to feel relaxed. And the husband might say, I want to feel connected to you. Okay, if we know we both want to feel these things, what do we have to put into place so that you can feel connected, so that she can feel relaxed, you can feel connected. So what's the one thing she needs to feel relaxed? What's the one thing you need to feel connected with her? What do you do to make sure the family is covered? What do you do to make sure the couple is covered? And then how do you make sure that you build that feeling every single day? You bring your kids into it too. You're like, hey guys, what do you want to feel as we go into this vacation? So I learned this from the SEAL teams, right? Which blows my mind because I'm like, Navy SEALs plan based on the emotional feeling they want to feel when the battlefield is secure. Right. So I was like, so they plan emotionally and then they backtrack from there. So when I learned this, I was like, why aren't we doing more of this as a family unit? Right. What do we want to feel? Backtrack from there. What are the actions we have to take and the things we have to plan to make sure we feel like that every single day of the vacation? When I taught this to a lot of my clients, they're just like, well, this is going to change how we do everything now. Now I'm going to add one more layer to this. Okay. Most people in relationship, there needs to be a follower, a leader, and a manager. The way I'm going to define follower, leader, and manager is completely unique from anything you've ever heard. The follower is the one that takes all the action. The leader is the one that evokes action in other people. The manager is the person that holds the desired end state, that emotional feeling of success, and provides all the resources and support. So when you go to plan something with your spouse, if you say to her, hey, who wants to follow, who wants to lead, who wants to manage? It's good to have that conversation because if you think about how relationships usually work, the woman's like, I've got this list, I'm running through this list, and she'll get angry at you because you don't do all the things on the list or you don't know to do the things on the list. And you're like, I didn't even know you wanted me to do these things. So instead if you say, hey, babe.
I got to do it all, is what I hear.
Well, that's what you're all going to hear until we shift this up, right? Yeah. So instead what we say is, okay, and I used to do this with my ex-husband because he was a Navy SEAL and this was his communication. We had to make it work. So I was like, all right, how do you I'm like, if I want to be the leader and you're going to be the manager, I'm like, I need all the resources from you. So I know what the resources are that I can work with. And I need you to hold the vision of what we want this vacation to be. And I want you to remind me if I go off track that you're like, wait, babe, didn't we say we want the vacation to be like this? Oh yeah, you're right. Sorry, I was getting off track. Right. So that's the manager. As the leader, I'm moving between taking the action as a follower and evoking action in other people, going out and being like, hey, we need a rental car. Okay, I'm going to talk to these people about the rental car. Or hey, we need to make sure we have, this car seat for the kids. I'm going to make sure we have that. But if you're both trying to play both roles, both of you are going to be angry at each other the whole time. But if I know I'm the leader and I'm moving between evoking action and taking action, I'm very clearly in my role. If he's the person being like, hey, we got this amount of resource and I'm going to keep you focused on how we want to create this vacation to be the feeling that you told me you wanted, now we're working together. We got a manager, we got a leader, everything's moving. And if we both get out of our roles, we both can just call each other back and be like, wait, you told me you wanted me to play this role. This is the role I'm playing. So I say this because we have to change the way we do team. We don't change the way we do team in our relationships, in our businesses. We end up frustrated, exhausted, and we have no capacity for the things we want most. Sorry, that was a lot.
No, I
got all that?
Yeah, I am. I'm taking notes over here.
Have Murph send you the footage before we leave. Good thing
we're
recording.
Yeah, 37 minutes in.
I'm just like, how much can I give you guys in one go, right?
So good. I love that, man. Wow, that's good. How can you explain subconscious sabotage and how it shows up in how it shows up in how a man runs his business and his marriage?
So what I've noticed with most men is that if they have an unstable situation in their home life, they're going to have an unstable situation or a capped situation revenue-wise in their business. So whenever I go into a team or working with someone, I'm always saying, how long have you been stuck at this amount of revenue? Because the amount of revenue that they get stuck at is almost always related to a relationship pattern that's going on with their spouse that they don't see. So, you know how everyone like hires a business coach and they're like, oh, I want you to help me with my business. When they hire me, I'm a business coach because I've built 3 businesses and I've helped people build millions in their businesses. But I'm also like, well, there's some pattern in your relationship at home that we haven't identified. And once we identified that, most times they start practicing this new way of behavior with their spouse and then their business takes off like crazy. So I know it's not probably something people want to hear, but it is something I've seen from the past 15 years. If you resolve that relationship pattern that you have at home to make your home more stable and more connected and more loving, then everything else in business gets so much easier.
Okay.
It's usually a connection piece that you're missing at home that you're not doing with your team in the office that would make the office even more productive and effective. But we get stuck because we think, as specifically as men, right? We think I can go to the office and I can go to work and I can immediately feel like I'm valued because I'm producing. And then I go home and she's sort of in charge of the house sometimes. And I feel like, don't know what I'm doing. She doesn't think I'm doing anything right. I feel like I'm doing everything wrong. So when that happens, right, there's something missing in the connection formula that you haven't built in that home environment that if you figure it out, it changes the game in business with every person you interact with, even with your sellers.
Wow. So like so what would you say is like the most common thing? Is it's just something missing, or like what's the most common thing that you see with people that you're discovering or help them discover? Is there like a common thing, or is it kind of different for everybody?
You know, that's the tough part, right? It's different for almost everybody, but a couple of the common themes, right? Usually, and I always say, you hired your spouse to heal you. Okay, so you hired your spouse to heal you. Most times people are like, oh, she's on my back all the time. She's triggering me all the time, all this stuff. I'm like, you hired her in this story, this reality that you're living in to heal you. So, for example, if she's overcorrecting you, she's trying to make everything perfect, that's an expression of her love for you, but you might not see it that way. So in the mind of your subconscious, I'm like, well, where in your life do you need everything to be perfect? Where are you trying to exert too much control instead of going after connection? Where aren't you present? So I would say the biggest things I would tell you is most men that go through this, they haven't been present enough with their own emotions. And so their spouse represents for them this constant nagging to be more present, be more emotional, be more of who you are at the core of who you are, rather than this intellectualized, logical guy that you feel you have to be to make business successful, if that makes sense. I would say the overarching umbrella theme.
Yeah.
That was me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, why do you think men struggle with the being present at home?
Well, number one, you guys don't have a transition plan between the office and home. You go right from one to the other. So the biggest thing I work with most men is I'm like, okay, let's figure out what's your customized transition plan that you have to decompress before you get home so that your brain can stop running. Because most men, you go from call right to home and then you're at home and you're like, shoot, I forgot to do this. I forgot to do that. I need to do this. And you haven't had a chance to brain dump any of that. Yeah. And so how can you be present when your brain's running 1,000,000 miles an hour, right? So first we work on that transition plan. And then the other piece of it is you're there because you're so logical, right? So your brain is like, it sees all these open loops and you haven't had a chance to close any of the loops. So we work a lot on what are the subconscious loop patterns that are holding you back, that are keeping you in that play to play of like, I got to do this. I got to do this. Oh my gosh, I forgot to do this. So when we work on opening your heart space, and I could teach you guys something really cool on air that you could do to open up your heart space that you'll feel a difference from. I tell men, I'm like, before you get home, you have to connect to your heart. And there are very few ways to do that super quickly, but if you guys are open to it, I'd love to share.
Absolutely.
It. Okay, so for anybody listening, you guys can do this too. All you got to do for men that are listening is you close your eyes, you put your right hand on your heart, put your left hand on your stomach. This way we're syncing up your brain with your heart and your gut, which are the 3 epic brain centers of the body. So I'm going to have you close your eyes and then I'm going to say some things out loud. And I just want you to repeat out loud after me. And before we start, I just want you to notice where do you feel tension in your body, right? Because you're going to feel tension somewhere. Because you're holding. Most men are always holding that container for protection's sake. So just notice where you have a little bit of that tension in your body. And then we're going to notice at the end how we feel differently. So gentlemen, I'm going to have you repeat out loud after me, okay? Hi.
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 I'm listening.
I'm listening.
Thank you for sharing this with me.
Thank you for sharing this with me.
Thank you for bringing this to my attention.
Thank you for bringing this to my attention.
All of your emotions are good.
All of your emotions are good.
All of your thoughts are important to me.
All of your thoughts are important to me.
I will always have your back.
I will always have your back.
I will always be here for you.
I will always be here for you.
Now pause for a moment. Just let that settle in. I love you.
I love you.
Please forgive me.
Please forgive me.
I am sorry.
I am sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would it be okay if we are a team?
Would it be okay if we are a team?
Would it be okay if we do life together?
Would it be okay if we do life together?
I'm going to walk you through this again. Keep your eyes closed. And I want you to imagine, I want you to picture in your mind that little kid that is your little boy. The little guy that you remember from maybe a photo of you when you were a little boy. Maybe you just see yourself that way sometimes. And I want you to imagine now that you're speaking to that little guy as we do this. Hi.
Hi.
I'm listening.
I'm listening.
Thank you for sharing your emotions with me.
Thank you for sharing your emotions with me.
Thank you for bringing this to my attention.
Thank you for bringing this to my attention.
All of your thoughts are good.
All of your thoughts are good.
All of your emotions are important to me.
All of your emotions are important to me.
I will always have your back.
I will always have your back.
I will always be here for you.
I will always be here for you.
You are enough for me.
You are enough for me.
I love you.
I love you.
Please forgive me.
Please forgive me.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would it be okay if we are a team?
Would it be okay if we are a team?
Would it be okay if we do life together?
Would it be okay if we do life together?
So I just want you to pause now and feel the difference in your body. You feel. And if you guys are willing, you can share.
Yeah. Feel relaxed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Feel like I was just being very nice to myself,
Mhm.
which I don't think I do that enough.
Most
No.
men never do. 'Cause
Yeah.
you guys are always thinking about everybody else and trying to take care of everything else around you, right?
Yeah.
But if you do this just a little bit in the morning, like you feel a little bit more emotional now, right? Like you are definitely more present now than you were at the beginning of the show. And it's cool to see because your eyes are more aware now.
Yeah.
You're more here, right? And like this is the thing that all of the spouses want. They want you to be here with them because then you're in it with them. They don't feel like you're running a million miles an hour in a different direction.
How would you recommend this to like single fathers that do have to do everything?
Yep. Well, that's where, and I know this probably isn't the most practical thing for some people to think about, but I'm a single mom. I've run 3 businesses, had 2 little kids under the age of 5 and had to figure it out. And so the biggest thing is you ask for help everywhere. So I had people that I asked for help all the time. I had no family in the area. So I would always have 4 to 5 different babysitters that I was like, listen, I'm going to pay you an extra chunk of change as a retainer. So I hold on to your business every single month. And I want to make sure that no matter what happens, that you are synced up when I call you. So I would have like surprise gifts that I would send to them just to remind them like, hey, we're still synced up here. I'd make sure I had a little retainer of money set aside for everybody every month, even if I wasn't using them, just to make sure that no matter what, if something were to happen, I had people to call. Because there's nothing worse when you're a single parent than feeling like you're alone and you don't have community to support you.
Yeah, no, it's tough. Sucks.
Been there.
Yeah, it's
Been
not
there.
easy. Not
It's
easy at
not.
all.
But you gotta, the thing too that's hard is like, and I'll tell you guys this very vulnerably, I basically have to forgive myself every day, right? For the choices that I made for certain people in my life. And we tend to get really down on ourselves, right? Because of whatever relationships we had with the people that may not be the best parent or what we wanted or whatever it is. But if you forgive yourself, you're just like, listen, I needed that person to be my healing partner so I could learn more of who I am. And they were just showing me who I am and who I am not. We can look at it that way instead of getting too attached to the triggers of the person and forgive ourselves for making the choices we make. I mean, I used to do it every single day. It was the best thing I could do as I went through the divorce process too.
Yeah, I mean, I actually have a better relationship now with my ex-wife and her boyfriend than I did when we were married.
Which is
So,
amazing.
Yeah. So it has nothing to do with any of that. We've worked through all of that stuff. It's just,
It's
life's
a
just-
lot.
Life's just fucking hard,
Yeah. That's why you have to be really careful with your inputs. You
Yeah.
gotta make sure everything that goes into your mind is something positive, beneficial, listening to Abraham Hicks, listening to, positive music, watching only comedy, right? All these things. Cause men like action films, they like drama, but like if we're rewiring the subconscious, we got to make sure that every input that's going into your mind is intentional and selected. And that's where I think a lot of guys tend to get off the reservation a bit because you don't control the inputs as much as you could.
Yeah, I think that's really important. The inputs, I know I saw a big change in my life when I started just consuming more like positive podcasts, like more, like stuff like, I listen to a lot of Rogan, a lot of Chris Williamson, a lot of, I got into reading like the Stoicism books. And I feel like once I started, getting into more like the personal development side space, I feel like my life improved. And because I think I was just putting good positive things in my brain all the time.
100%.
And I think that that's something that not a lot of people do, or they don't realize that that stuff kind of rubs off on you, or it does over time.
It does. It does 100%. And it sections out what your brain keeps versus what your brain lets go of subconsciously as you sleep. So like, I don't know if, for the people listening, the gentlemen listening, there are 2 books, Way of the Superior Man by David Data and Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. If you're in the beginning of this journey and you really want to shake things up in your subconscious, you read those 2 books.
Okay.
And it gives you just a whole different level of understanding of both how men are wired, but then also how the subconscious tries to mess with you. Really fascinating, those 2.
What were the 2 books?
David Data's book, which is The Way of the Superior Man, and Napoleon Hill's book, Outwitting the Devil.
Okay. Napoleon Hill, that's the same guy who did Think and Grow Rich, right?
Yes,
yeah.
correct.
Yes.
Almost all the men I've ever coached were like, those 2 books dramatically changed my life, just
Wow. Okay.
having you even recommend them. So that's why.
Great. Well, I will definitely.
You said Outgrow the Devil?
Outwitting the Devil.
Outwitting
the Devil and
The Way of the Superior Man.
Man. Yep. Cool. We'll definitely check those out. Like last year we did a little book club. Pat and I, we tried to get
nice.
our listeners to do it too. It was we'd read a book together every month, and then we do like a podcast, kind of like a book review podcast, and we kind of got away from that this year. But that's definitely something I would love to get back to.
Yeah.
Because it was just it kind of forced me to read, because I was like, oh man, I got to talk about this for an hour, like I gotta at least know a little bit about it.
That's perfect. That's what you guys want.
It was something that kind of hold us accountable to actually, reading every day.
Yeah. So we've had so many guests and people that wanted to come on that we've kind of gotten away from doing the one-on-one podcasts. I mean,
because we used to just do, so every week we do 2 episodes a week. So it used to be, one with a guest, and then we would just do one, just the 2 of us. And, but, and that was just a good topic for because after a while you get like, all right, what are we going to talk about this week?
Right.
Well, if you guys ever run out of ideas for what to talk about, I could literally tell you about these different books that you should read, because they will completely blow your mind in the best way possible.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah. My go-to, and I've read this book. I've read this book every year since I've been 14. So what is that? 23 years now. It's called The Mental Game of Baseball. It was on my Bible.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's a book given to me when I was in middle school by my pitching coach, who's like my older brother now. And basically talks about like mental techniques and things, kind of like you're talking about, like visualization, how you speak to yourself, things like that. But yeah, no, that's stuff that I either listen to the more audiobook as of the last few years than reading. But yeah, I had a copy of it from like middle school through high school, where I would go through each year and read it and highlight it with a different color. And then college was another level. When I was playing there, I would go through highlight and for freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year. And then when I got into pro ball, every year that I was in pro ball, I read it with a different colored highlighter and went through it. And it was crazy how different things would stick out at different points in times. But yeah, that was an incredible book, and definitely helped me on like the mental side of things and as well. Doesn't dive too much in the emotions. It talks about being like learning how to control the emotions, but not like what each emotion or how to feel those things. But that was my book. But I'm always looking for new ones and things like that, because I think the mental side of things, the emotional side of things, are so important.
Well, I'm going to take that for my little boy. He's 11 right now, and he's a big fan of starting to like get into baseball a little bit more. And so I think
some of the references might be prior to his time, but some of them are prior to my time. But the analogies and the way that they connected are incredible.
I love that though. I think too, when you have a book like that follows you throughout your entire lifetime, and you're able to highlight the different sections and when they speak to you, because you can't, like what I always tell people after a call is, I'm like, listen, we're going to record this call because half the stuff your subconscious brain is going to remove at the end of this call. You're not even going to remember that we discussed it. And then they go back and they watch the call again. They're like, oh my God, there was a lot that I never even heard you say. And I'm like, that's how the subconscious brain works. It deletes information that would make you even more effective, because it goes against the way that it keeps you safe. So it's sort of crazy to think about that your subconscious does that. But like that, you telling that story about the baseball book and how you highlighted different things because it resonated differently, that's because it's part of how your subconscious brain was developing, which is really, really cool.
That is cool.
I love that.
Damn subconscious.
Yeah.
So everybody says it first, then I'm like, no, don't be upset at it.
Yeah.
Just say thank you. Like, thank you for teaching me these things, but I'm ready to move on and evolve into something else next.
Yeah. Because, you might hear it differently next time.
True.
No?
And if you beat yourself up for your subconscious, then it just drives the same old neural pathway, actually.
Gotcha.
So you got to be so careful. Like, that's why I don't get upset anymore. My subconscious, I'm like, oh, look, it's happening again. How interesting. I'm so glad this is being brought to my attention.
Never mind. Don't damn you, subconscious. Thanks.
Right.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks,
Thanks,
buddy.
buddy. Thanks for looking out for me.
Yeah. Well, Annie, you've been doing this for 15 years. Have you ever come across anybody that was like so resistant to change that you had to walk away?
Yep, it's happened twice.
Oh.
2 times. They were both women, but they both had massive trauma from their mothers. And they started projecting that massive trauma onto me. And so I told them at the beginning, I'm like, listen, this could happen because I'm a female. You have a massive trauma with your mom. I'm like, if I start to be nurturing, it's going to be something that you react negatively to. And so I set that expectation at the beginning, but I think it was still shocking for them when it came up. Because like when you're in that space of being in fight or flight, you can't really hear the person logically walking you through what's happening. So it hurt my heart, but I was like, you know, you do have to sometimes tell people like, you're just not ready. You need to talk to a therapist first, or you need to do some other work. But, you know, everyone's on their own journey.
Yeah.
So you don't really judge it. You're just like, I did the best that I could and wanted support as best I could. It does happen sometimes. And that usually means the person needs to do more work in therapy or through some breakthrough stuff before they can talk about trauma in a logical way.
Right, but I mean, you know, you got to realize you're not for everybody.
No,
I'm not for
and
everybody.
I shouldn't be
Pat's
for
not
everybody.
for everybody.
No.
You know, and that's okay. You know,
Exactly.
that's something I've realized in my business, and you know, it was a hard thing for me at first, just because I spent 10 years in the restaurant industry, and it was like, you know, everybody can eat food, you know, and it was like everybody, you know, it's like, and I realized when I got into real estate, and I was like, oh man, I just want every transaction, every piece of business I can. I don't want to say no to anybody, and then like. When that definitely got me into, I taught me some lessons, but it got me into some situations where I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's brutal. I can't deal with people like this. But now that I've been doing this for, 6 years now, I've got a, pretty good grip on people that I know I'm going to do well with, we're going to have a great relationship, and I can kind of pick those people out beforehand. And I'm like, oh man, it's going to be a tough one. I don't know if I want to do this, but I got to kind of weigh the pros and cons, but that's kind of one of the beauties of being an entrepreneur. You can kind of choose who you work with.
That's true. And that's my favorite thing these days too, because like, back when I used to do executive coaching, because I was in a lot of the companies taking the Navy SEAL stuff that we had backwards engineered into these companies, most of the people there, they don't want to really improve in a certain way. Like they're there because they were told they had to show up. That's why working with entrepreneurs now, I love it when somebody comes to me because they've heard of me from somebody else. Like, he said he dramatically changed his life. I wanted the same thing, but the funny thing to me is that most people don't necessarily want to tell other people that they were in such a low state before. And so they'll usually just be like, you just got to talk to Annie. And I'm like, well, what did you tell them? And they're like, nothing. You got to talk to her. So it makes me laugh because like, I wish we could all just own the fact, like we all got stuff. We're working on stuff all the time. We're human. This is what life is. And I just think our whole life is about that journey to figuring out like, what is our gift to humanity? Why are we here? And fortunately, most of it is linked to the trauma pattern that we have as a kid.
I mean, you seem like almost more like a therapist
That's
than like
what
a business
I've been
coach.
thinking, yeah.
That's what it's funny because I remember one big entrepreneur that worked with me was always like, Annie, my therapist. I'm like, I'm not your therapist. But because I have such a unique background in the business side, growing the business, and that people open up and they tell me all the things because I'm like, the more you tell me, the more we can shift. I just need to know what's going on. And so I think hopefully I create a really safe space for people. It helps.
Well, I mean, it's definitely, with the emotional intelligence side of it and understanding your emotions, that's, definitely something more people are getting from their therapist than anywhere else. So, I mean, it makes sense on why people would think that.
And the only
it's a different way of coaching.
Yeah, 100%. And the only thing that's different, I think, because everyone's like, well, what's the difference between therapy and what you do? And I always say, well, in therapy, you talk about everything a lot. For me, we talk about it and then we immediately put together an action plan on how are we changing this thought? How are we changing this behavior? How are we rewiring it sustainably? Because for me, it got frustrating. I was in therapy with my ex-husband for many years and I was like, well, where's the action plan? How are we changing these behaviors? It's just so for me, I'm hyper focused on we're changing the behaviors, we're changing the mindset, we're rewiring it so it is sustainable. Otherwise, please work with someone else.
Are you pretty good at differentiating between the people that may call and want and like, oh, really just looking for a quick fix versus the people that really do want to make a change?
Yep. Usually, I can tell if I run them through that process of the superpower process that I run people through. Once they see their pattern, I would say the hard part for me is that most men immediately want to change it. They're like, oh, I can see this is the breakthrough point for me. I got to do this work. The thing that hurts my heart is there are many women who see it, but they're like, oh, I can't do this for myself right now because I've got all these responsibilities with my kids, or I can't do something like that. And so that's what's been sad to watch for me because so many powerhouse women are deciding that they're not worth it yet to put in that energy. So I think that's why I have a lot of male clients, because all the men are like, oh my God, that's the thing.
Yeah, right.
How do we change it?
Yeah,
Like,
let's fix this.
Let's fix this, right?
We're the fixers.
You guys are. You're amazing like that.
We want to fix things, yeah.
Yeah, you want to fix it. You want to solve it. You want to move forward. So thank you guys as men, for being willing to just go after the hard stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how we're wired, do hard shit. That Jason always says, do hard shit.
Jason,
yeah.
that's Jason's thing. Yeah. We have a member here. That says like whole logo.
Just do hard shit.
Do hard shit.
Well, it does expand your neurochemistry, right?
Yes,
If you do more hard things.
Yes. I think Huberman was talking about that recently. It was, he had this, I forget what it's called. It's something like a really like long name it's like some pathway in your brain, but it's like the more you do hard things, the more, the easier or the more acceptable that becomes to do hard things. Just like building up a muscle to do hard things.
It is a muscle. It's the self-regulation muscle.
I can't remember what the name of it was, like something
I know,
cortex,
I can't remember
like Antilly or something like that. I can't remember what it is, but
some fancy science word.
Yeah.
So we're not scientists here.
We'll look it up. Yeah.
So what's your personal process for when you've hit that ceiling or you're trying to break through and evolve?
That's the hard part, because I don't know many people that do the work that I do, right? But if you guys have ever heard of NLP, they have a breakthrough process there that is pretty profound.
What's NLP?
Neuro-linguistic programming.
Okay.
So there are groups all across the country that coach on this, but one of my very close friends, I had recommended, I'm like, hey, can you go out and do this breakthrough training? Because I think it's going to be impactful for you, massively impactful. And he's like, only if I get to do the work on you afterwards. And I said, I completely trust you. Please, do that. So I'm about to do that at the beginning of August. I've done it before. But the thing that it does, which many other tools don't do, is it aligns your values with where you want to go. And usually the subconscious has values that are different than the conscious mind. And what we don't know, or what we act on typically, is what we think the conscious mind values are, but they're actually the values that are stuck in the 11 million data points of the subconscious. So that for me is a massive breakthrough opportunity to look at and be like, okay, what has my subconscious been telling me it values, which has been throwing me off track? And how do I get back on track, because I actually know now what I do value? So the subconscious is sneaky. It runs 11 million data points a second. The conscious brain only runs 40. So if you think about the deficit there, how would you ever see something in those 11 million data points a second? You might not.
What are those
for your whole life?
How are they? How are there 11 million data? That's crazy. Who counted all them all?
I don't know who counted them all, but every set you see is like between 95 and 97% of your daily, everything you do is run by the subconscious. Which is wild. So I'm like, well, let's give you a chance to actually harness the subconscious by figuring out what's running it. And then once you know that, you make different decisions. And really the goal for me is like for every entrepreneur out there, because we're all in fight or flight at the beginning of this journey, I want everybody to get out of fight or flight, to know what their subconscious story is, to make sure that they're on their purpose path and they can take the right action, because we waste a lot of time taking the wrong action, throwing us off our path because we don't know what that story is.
Do you think getting off that fight or flight pan kind of helps with eliminating imposter syndrome?
Massively.
Yeah.
Because if you look, like I was going to be on this podcast once and they asked me, they're like, could you talk about imposter syndrome? And I'm like, sure. So I did a little bit of research. I'm like, there's nothing out there really. It's like, oh, you should write in a journal and have gratitude for your life. And I'm just like, this is not what's going to solve imposter syndrome.
No.
Right. And one of the things I realized was I'm like, there are two big ways you can start to solve imposter syndrome right off the bat. Number one, you have to rebuild your relationship with the younger version of yourself and every version of yourself that you have not liked. So I say that because it's profound, but it's also scary. You have to go back to every moment that you didn't like yourself and you have to rewrite that story, because the reason why you have imposter syndrome is because you've never validated who that little kid was at any of those levels, or he never received validation, or he never received that acceptance that he wanted. So you can recreate that, but it takes some work. So that's the first thing typically for imposter syndrome. And the second piece is changing the neurochemistry. Because again, think of neurochemistry like a big 5-lane highway. You've been running down that same highway for 20 years. How are you supposed to create a new road off that highway if you don't have a boost to your neurochemistry? It's almost physically impossible. You can try, which is why I tell people, I'm like, if you're starting this journey, instead of brushing your teeth with your right hand, brush your teeth with your left hand for 5 days straight, because it changes the way your brain is making connections.
Really?
Yep. So little things like that, right? Brush your hair with your other hand, right?
I don't have any hair, but yeah.
Well, I can't tell because you're in a hat. But that's the thing, right? Like, or if you're grooming your beard, right?
Yeah.
Groom your beard with your other hand
hand,
versus the first hand, right? Because we're just trying to give your brain the opportunity to create different neural connections.
What if you're ambidextrous and you already do things with both hands?
Darn it.
Yeah.
Then you gotta
I don't know
really
if
change
I've ever
up and
brushed my
learn.
teeth with my left hand. I'm gonna have to try that.
It's really different because you start thinking differently.
Yeah.
Because you're doing something so different that you haven't done before, and it's something so simple, but it just helps you hop off that highway onto that little country road, and then you can start building a country road much easier. That then becomes the 5-lane highway of exactly where you want to go.
Interesting.
I'll know what I'll do because I brush my right side with my right hand and my left side with my left hand.
Do you really?
Yeah.
What?
So I'll brush my right side with.
I have never had that
Yeah.
question before.
Yeah.
Anybody ever tell me that?
Switch
That's
hands in
amazing.
the middle.
So just, Yeah, for
Just
pretty much
pass it off?
like everything. With that,
Really?
pretty much everything I do. Like I'll eat with both hands. I can write with both hands, but I'm left hand dominant. What else?
A lot of left-handed
Like-
people are like that, where they can do things.
Well, yeah,
with
no.
both
So
hands.
I literally will throughout the day be doing the same thing, but I'll just like switch it up in my hand.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never. I can't. It's not me for sure. I'm like right hand everything.
Well, that's going to be a big change for you then, neurochemically.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, I can't even like write my name with my left hand. I mean, I probably could, but you're not gonna be able to read it.
Well, I broke my left hand when I was in like first grade. So I had to write with my right hand, and I just realized, and then obviously with baseball being a right-handed pitcher, everything was, but like I am left hand dominant. That's like my go-to on everything. Left side dominant. I'm left-footed when I kick a soccer ball. All of that stuff, but I've had to train my right side to be stronger and better because of baseball.
That's probably what made you a really good baseball player too, is that you had that variety.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Probably. I just wish I could. My eyesight was better.
Or I wish you threw with your left hand.
Or if
because you always said you'd still be playing if I could throw with my left.
If I threw left-handed like I did right-handed, we wouldn't have this podcast. Or it'd be a completely different topic.
Be the Zach and someone else show.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, Annie, what keeps you inspired?
Honestly, every time I have a call with someone, and I'm about to have a call right after the show, right? Every time I have a call with someone and I see the light go on, that everything can change, right? Because like as human beings, we're wired for hope. We want hope more than anything. And to be able to, like one woman I had just worked with, she was in for, I think it was 50 years, she had believed that she wasn't a good steward of money. And she couldn't figure out why she believed that. And we were able to trace it all the way back to what had happened. And I reset the whole thing so that now she's going out as this investor. In the past, she was an accountant. And we flipped this one thing in her brain. She's like, well, this feels so different. I feel like I could have a totally different life now. I'm like, that's the point. You can. And that level of hope and relief to someone and watching someone really step into how amazing they are, like there's no better drug in the planet. So that's how I stay really connected to it. And I do things from a place of joy. Like I don't say yes to a client unless I know 100% I can make sure I make this change with them and for them. It's not my responsibility to hold them to that change, but it is my responsibility to show them the vision of where they can go. It's like, that is what inspires me all day long. And I'm sort of, everyone says I'm relentless, and I am, because I'm like, if I can see it, I know you can see it. And once you see it, everything shifts. I love it. It's literally the best job to have in the whole world. I'm like, I hope I can keep doing this till I'm like in my 70s.
It's amazing.
Well, you've talked a lot about leadership, and and that's the thing too, is like looking back, especially with the way the schooling system is now, they don't teach people how to lead. They teach people how to follow.
Correct.
What would you teach on leadership for all of us to take away, like just something powerful today, like one thing?
I would say that you need to lead not the way that you want to be led, but you need to lead based on the motivation of each person individually. And I would also say that, most times people in leadership positions are leading to, they're not leading to the functional level of their team. Their team can be very low functioning and they need to micromanage that team. A lot of people are micromanaging a team that could be higher functioning, but they're stuck in their own thought process around what they needed when they were in that position. So I think if we could look at leadership, like with those 3 definitions I gave you guys earlier, right? There's going to be a follower, there's going to be a leader, there's going to be a manager. We have to redefine what each of those roles is, and then we have to make sure the entire team understands those roles. If we understand those roles, then I got to be honest with you guys, what I see for most entrepreneurs is you're still a follower. You're taking all the action. You haven't up-leveled to be the leader who evokes action in others. Maybe you're doing those 2 things here or there, but very rarely do I find an entrepreneur who's actually managing the team in the way that they should be managing the team. And then we have to change that paradigm, because Usually, if you're in the follower or the leader role, it's because you feel like your only value comes from jumping in to save people and micromanage them and manage their emotions. And you're trying to be more of a father than you are a businessman.
How would you go about doing that? Like meet individually with each person on the team and like kind of figure out what their motivation is?
What I do is I run a process for people. So like when a team calls me to come in, I usually sit with the team and I will run them through a process as a team together. That's the why, the greater why process, which is we're looking at what is this emotional feeling that each of the team members wants to feel in their job and why do they want to feel that way? Usually you can tie it back to something very early in their childhood or a dream they've always had. And for most teams I've worked with, like I'll turn to the owner, I'll turn to the COO or the CFO and I'll be like, so do you know what the why is of every person in your team? They're like, I have no idea. I'm like, well, how are you supposed to motivate someone if you don't know their why? And usually to get to someone's why, it takes 3 to 4 questions of, well, why? Well, why? Well, why? Because no one's going to tell you their why straight out of the bat, and they don't even know. So it's a process you can do either as a team or it's a process that I do one-on-one with people, especially for a lot of men as they transition, they're lacking in purpose. You ever feel like you don't know where you're going or what you're doing? It's because you don't have your purpose identified. And so that's also something you can pull out of the subconscious, which is, you might be thinking, oh, I really want to like write a book or do this. But the reality is your subconscious has a totally different purpose that it's driving you toward because you've never addressed what's the one thing missing to help you see your purpose in a different way. So I love doing purpose sessions with people. I love doing these emotional why sessions with teams. It's just, we just don't know what we don't know because we don't spend the time going super deep with people to figure that out.
Yeah, that was my very first coaching call with my coach. He just said, well, figure out your why. And we just sat there and for an hour on a phone call and just kind of dove into it and just kept asking why.
Yep. You got to go 4-3 levels deep. Otherwise, you don't know.
Yep.
And if you don't know, for everybody in real estate, right, I like to know it for every single person that's touching base with any client, right? Like, I want to know what the lead managers, what their whys are. I want to know what the acquisition rep whys are. I want to know every single person's why, because then when someone gets off track or they're not closing deals, say you have metrics for 2 deals a week. If they're not closing the deal, it's because they're not linked to their why. They're not connected to their purpose. Because if they were, that emotion would be supercharging their activity.
Yep. I write mine out every single day. Type it, text it to myself all the time, just as a reminder.
It's a filter for your subconscious and conscious thought. Super helpful.
So Annie, this has been amazing having you here. This has been awesome. You're wonderful, and I mean, this has been. This will definitely be one that I go back and listen to.
For sure.
But we end the show the same way every time. So before we get you out of here,
play a fun little game. We call it the Tombstone game.
Bring it. I'm ready.
Here lies Annie. What does it say on your tombstone?
She always left everybody feeling better about themselves.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, thank you all at home for tuning in and watching or listening to the show. If you haven't clicked that subscribe button yet, please do so. That would help us out a ton. Pat and I are trying to get to 500 subscribers before the end of 2025. So, help us hit that goal. If you got something out of this awesome episode, make sure to share it with a friend. Click that like button as well. Comment what you thought below, and we'll see you next time.